So, Bill, in the last segment, you explained to us the development in the mid '80s, early '80s, of a practice that was born out of an ideology of shareholder value in corporations as a way of measuring the success of a corporation, as opposed to sort of a broader, more civic-minded, not to the exclusion of profits in any way, but in that a company works not just for its owners. It does at that time, but also its success is measured as to what it does for the community, what it does for its workers, what it does for the long-term prospects of the company itself, all had a bigger part in the assessment of a successful company. In the 80s, that ideology changed. It became about shareholder value. And one of the ways that that manifested itself was the Reagan administration essentially relaxing the rules via the SEC on when a company could buy back its own stocks. You explained to us that in what that does, and more so than the idea of increasing dividends to shareholders, broadly speaking, because it has the potential of benefiting the leadership of the company, and they have such an ability to manipulate what the company does at any given point. It creates a uniquely perverse incentive that then makes the corporation that much less, I guess, functioning to the benefit of those other stakeholders. Is that basically it?
That's right. And even in terms of shareholders, it benefits share sellers, not shareholders. And because I'm holding shares in a company long term, I don't want them to pay all the money out in dividends. I want them to reinvest and have competitive products in the future. And then if and when I sell the shares, I'll probably be at a higher price, and I'll make a gain.
Fair enough.
Buybacks are really just moving the company on, and they're being done on top of dividends, so it's not instead of dividends, and to the point where back in the early 1980s, before the implementation of this Rule 10b-18, maybe 50% of the profits of large companies were being distributed in the form of dividends, a very, very tiny percentage in buybacks, to the point now where it's 94, 95. In the pharmaceutical industry, among large companies, it's almost 100% of their profits. We pay high drug prices, and they say they need high profits to invest more in R&D, and they spend virtually 100%. Many companies like Merck and Pfizer, 150% year after year of their profits go to buybacks and dividends.
Wow.
And so we don't need the buybacks. Okay, yeah.
Well, okay, but we only have about 4 minutes left here. So, Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders, a bit of an odd couple, perhaps. They've gotten together. They have come up with a proposal on how to limit stock buybacks, and that is to have a series of rather micromanaged conditions that would allow for a stock buybacks. What are the problem? What's the problem with that proposal, as opposed to just simply returning to the regime essentially that we had in the early '80s?
Yeah, so I should say that Senator Tammy Baldwin introduced legislation last March called the Reward Work Act, which would rescind Rule 10b-18, this rule from 1982 that allows these mass repurchases. And if that were done, then the SEC, as a regulator of the stock market, would have to start, and Congress probably as well, would have to discuss what is going on here, or what is happening to these companies, and are you manipulating the market if you do these massive repurchases? Okay, so that's the route that I think you should go on that. On all the issues that they raised about $15 wage, sick leave, better medical coverage, or retirement pay, etc. I agree with all that that's what companies should do, but let's just do it. We don't need to say, well, okay, if you do less buybacks, or if you do too much buybacks, or if you don't do those things, then we won't let you do buybacks. Let's just say you have to have minimal standards of living that a profitable corporation pays to its employees, and that's a starting point. And I think we should just fight for that in its own right. Now, it's hampered. Their willingness to do it is hampered by all these buybacks. So, but I think there's another argument that can be made. Buybacks, basically, they're hugely damaging, and I would say even immoral. And I think they should be illegal. And there's a lot of reason why you would say they should be illegal, because we set up the SEC in 1934-35 with the notion that you eliminate fraud and manipulation on stock markets. And there's nothing that is more fraudulent and manipulative than stock buybacks. That's being done on a massive scale in plain view. And so let's just have a discussion about that and go for where the problem is and just get rid of them. They're unnecessary, and they're benefiting people, a relatively small number of people, not just the top executives, but hedge fund activists and Wall Street bankers. I saw Lloyd Blankfein tweeted something about, the money goes somewhere in the economy. No, the money goes to him and Goldman Sachs, and we know what they do with the money. That's partly because so much money comes out of these companies. People go to work every day, and the money that they help generate is going into the financial sector and used for whatever they do. And so that just needs to be stopped. And I think it should be an easy sell to Democrats, and I think some of them are starting to get it, many of them are, that let's just put a stop to that. And the other side of that would be, let's have decent minimal legislation, at least for the pay that workers get, the benefits they get, sick leave, et cetera.
Well, Bill Lazonick, it's a fascinating topic, and I guess we will have a sense in the next couple of years how many Democrats buy into this and where we go from there. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.